Welcome to the FF Forge. My name is Steve. I have a frog in my throat. One moment. And I would guesstimate about an hour ago I released the wide receiver video, so go check that out if you would like to see the wide receivers preliminary rankings. These are my early rankings for the week. Once I get my projections, especially at these running back and wide receiver positions, more shifts will be made. Just a quick insight into my methodology. For these preliminary rankings, I've been taking the expert consensus ranking from Fantasy Pros and then shifting them from there just based on my own thoughts and a little bit based on a matchup difficulty system that I really like, which is it's the difficulty to the mean, so it really compares the fantasy performance on a compared to each opponent level. That I think is a much more accurate way to look at things compared to just how many fantasy points defenses have let up across the season, because the opponent really matters. So this takes that into account as far as the opponent goes. I explained some other things in the previous video, so let's just get moving on here to the rankings, which you can find my projections and finalized rankings on www.theffforge.com. I will bring up my projections do have there's a few things to them. So I have floors, I have ceilings for each player, which I think is really nice if you are trying to figure out, if you're trying to strategize for against your opponent, what you think you need this week between a couple of guys and say, well, I want the highest floor this week. I just can't have a 0-point game or, a 3-point game. Then you can compare guys like that. And then I also have expected ranges on the players as well. That is where over 50% of the time the players are going to finish within that area of fantasy points. So that is just a nice way to dial into, compare a couple of players and their expected ranges. So what I'm getting at as well in my methodology here to go to that is that when I go to do my final rankings, I will start with my projections and then use this to help influence that. Whereas here, I just started with the ECR. So it all melds in together to give us the best rankings. Running back 1 for the week is Saquon Barkley. Number 2, Austin Eckler. 3, Nick Chubb. Then Christian McCaffrey, Leonard Fournette, Dalvin Cook, Jonathan Taylor, Ramondre Stevenson, Aaron Jones, Alvin Kamara, Breece Hall, and Joe Mixon, rounding them out. The guys that I have highlighted in green are going to be players that I have above the ECR, kind of the top 10-ish, plus or minus, and orange is going to be the guys that I have ranked below the ECR. So Jonathan Taylor is at 14 in the ECR. I assume that just has to do more with some of the, and it might not have to do with this, but just some question marks if he's going to be active this week or not. So I am obviously thinking he'll be active this week, and not the worst matchup on the ground there against Jacksonville. You're playing him. Same with Alvin Kamara. You're playing him. I have him 3 spots behind ECR at number 10. ECR is 7. I do like the matchup going up against Cincinnati is always potentially a higher scoring matchup. So that hasn't truly been the case a heck of a lot this season, but could be this week. Then moving on to our RB2s, starting off with Jeff Wilson at 13, followed by Miles Sanders, David Montgomery, Melvin Gordon, Ken Walker, James Conner, Devin Singletary, Clyde Edwards-Elaire, J.K. Dobbins, James Robinson, Raheem Mostert, and Najee Harris, rounding the bottom end of the RB2s out. And David Montgomery is going to be the first notable player that I have ranked. Is this right? 5 spots ahead. Yes, 4 spots ahead of the ECR at 15. ECR and him is 19. Going up against Washington, Chicago offense is starting to turn things around, and maybe that won't be good for the rushing attack. Maybe it'll be less consistent than it's been if they start to get passing things working there. But having Justin Fields always helps to open up things for the running back, as his legs are starting to be used under him more too. So that'll really help to prevent defenses from focusing in on what's really just been the only thing that Chicago's been able to do, which is rush the ball so far this season. And it was pretty evident last week that David Montgomery's hopping back into his role. going up against Washington. Love the matchup. High ceiling type game, so like him. Then James Conner, I have at 18. The ECR is 22, so 4 spots ahead on him as well. Going up against Seattle this week. Just another matchup I like. Easily a potential 2-touchdown game. James Conner is one guy who may not be playing this week, so keep an eye on that. Eno Benjamin would be a somewhere right around here if James Conner is not going. So they did sign a running back off their practice squad. They signed a free agent running back, Tyson Williams, I think they brought in yesterday. So that's not a great sign, but I think that would be not a great sign for Darrell Williams, more so than James Conner. So we'll just keep an eye on that as the week goes. Then Devin Singletary, I have at 19. ECR on him is 21. Not a heck of a lot of difference there. Going up against Kansas City, really like the upside potential. Yeah, with that Buffalo offense, it's always possible that he's just not very involved, but he has been more often than not as of late, and once again, similar to the Arizona matchup, I mean, he could just find himself falling into the end zone a couple of times, so there's too much upside to ignore. Clyde Edwards-Elaire, I have 3 spots behind the ECR at 20, going up against Buffalo, tough rushing matchup, but you can't really ignore the his production so far, getting into the end zone, and this is one of those games where he could definitely find himself in the end zone. There's some usage concerns after last week. There really have been all season long, but this is one of those matchups where, once again, could fall into the end zone a few times. J.K. Dobbins, I have at 21. The ECR on him is 18. Going up against the Giants, not a smash matchup. He is... I think we're starting to get into the territory of running backs that are not must-starts here at 21. This is starting to get into my flex territory where maybe you start to look at the floors and ceilings in my projections based on what you need to choose which players are going to be best for you in that week. J.K. Dobbins has not arrived quite yet. Had a solid week 1 from him, but there are some concerns there. And same with Najee Harris, lots of concerns. I have him at 24. He is at 20. Not a good matchup here against Tampa Bay. I'm trying to find a way to sit him if I can. And that'll bring us to our running back 3s and running back 4s, you can see down there. So the running back 3 is starting at running back 25. A.J. Dillon, followed by Kareem Hunt, Ezekiel Elliott, Travis Etienne Jr., Tony Pollard, Tyler Algier, Michael Carter, Mike Boone, Cam Akers, Eno Benjamin, Darrell Henderson Jr., Rashad White. Eno Benjamin may fall back a few spots depending on the news throughout the week. Still don't mind that RB2 there, especially if James Conner is coming back, but he's like a little bit sore from the rib injury where they might limit him just a touch, especially depending on game flow if they were to take a big lead. So I think Benjamin might be a solid risky flex option this week, even if James Conner is back. Let's get on to my 31st, the ECR 33, Michael Carter going up against Green Bay. He's someone who has a lot more upside than the rankings might suggest. I don't mind him as a flex play this week again, but there's definitely risk there. Still, not a bad matchup here going up against Green Bay. Mike Boone, a lot of upside there too, going up against the Chargers. Good matchup for running backs. I think he'll get enough work that if you feel comfortable with him, not a bad play. I have him 3 spots ahead of ECR currently, and he's definitely someone who may work his way up a little bit further depending on some of the things that I find out throughout the week. Then Cam Akers, I have 3 spots behind ECR at 33. ECR's 30. Yeah, I would rather start some of these guys ahead of him. Just without a doubt, there's not a whole heck of a lot of upside, even in an alright matchup there against Carolina. Really don't like that Rams rushing attack. It hasn't been there since... Why did I just blank on his name? It was right at the tip of my tongue, but it hasn't been there for some time. Oh, I had it. Dang it. So let's move on to the final 12 here, the RB4s, the guys you don't want to be put in a situation to play. But starting off with Brian Robinson, main issue here is going up against Chicago, pretty darn solid rushing defense. And there's some questions there. Hold off if you can on him probably this week. Then Nyheim Hines, he's got some upside. Khalil Herbert, there's some upside there too. Those are flex guys where taking a chance on them might not be the worst thing in the world over some of these guys where, yeah, their average fantasy points might be higher, but what's the is Ezekiel Elliott going to fall in the end zone here in this game? I don't know about that. So then J.D. McKissick in at 40, Antonio Gibson, Jerick McKinnon, Alexander Madison, Samaje Perine, Mark Ingram the second, Caleb Huntley, there's a name I like, Jace Edmonds, Isaiah Pacheco. There might be more shifting around. Once again, I also took the ECR top 48, so just like the wide receivers, there are going to be some names that aren't in here that maybe I have higher that just didn't make it into this list because of the methodology there of coming up with this list to get out to you as quick as I can. So Antonio Gibson at 41, the ECR on him is 37. I'm fading him this week. I'm really not trying to play him. He gets up ahead of some others in the rankings right now just based on the possibility that my thoughts are wrong on him, but I don't want to risk a nothing burger essentially from him for what kind of upside? What's the upside here? Going up against Chicago, not a great matchup. Best case scenario, he's still in a three-headed backfield. Just don't see the upside. Jerick McKinnon, I have at 42. Going up against Buffalo here, he is 44th in the ECR. Could be a very high-scoring game, so I like players in high-scoring games. Then Samaje Perine, I have at 44. ECR on him is 46. He's gotten some play out there. His matchup here is, decent, a little bit better than some of these guys. And Mark Ingram, I have at 45. He's ECR 47. Okay, he moved up a little bit, whatever. Caleb Huntley, though, interesting. San Francisco actually not a terrible matchup there on the ground for running back so far this season, and he has been really efficient from the backfield so far in this season when he's gotten opportunities onto the field. So I'm looking to be moving him up further in my projections. There's Damian Harris may be coming back there, so there are some question marks, but he is a definitely DFS type play. Then Jace Edmonds, Isaiah Pacheco, I have three spots behind the ECR, probably because I probably moved Caleb Huntley up ahead of them. Jace Edmonds, if he had more than one attempt last week, there would be some upside that we might say not a terrible flex, or even he's a DFS play. Unless he's dirt cheap, I don't think he's a good DFS option, and you just can't trust him in a redraft league right now. Yeah, it's pretty much the same with Isaiah Pacheco. He's really only good in matchups where Kansas City's going to blow out teams. That at least seems to be the case currently. And that's what I think it's been all season so far, has been the case for his usage. So not expecting that this week. All right, later on today, I will have the quarterbacks and tight ends videos. Those will show my projections, so you can kind of see how those ceilings and floors work if you haven't seen them before. And those will be closer probably to my final projections compared to the wide receiver and running back. That's it. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. I'll see you later on today. Bye.